The fluorescent lights cast a cool glow over the ice rink, reflecting off the freshly smoothed surface in a way that always made me catch my breath. I've been coming to this rink since I was 12, but there's something about the crisp smell of cold air mixed with the lingering scent of Zamboni fuel that still feels like home. My name is Alex, and hockey has been my escape for as long as I can remember. Not that I'm particularly good at it. I'm decent enough to make the team, but not skilled enough to stand out. And that's been the story of my life, really. Present, but not quite seen. It was a Thursday evening practice when everything changed. Our team, the Northside Wolves, had just finished our drills, and most of the guys were already heading to the locker room. I lingered on the bench, pretending to check my phone while actually trying to avoid the chaotic energy of 15 sweaty guys crammed into a space designed for 10. That's when I noticed him. Jamie Callahan, center forward for the Eastside Falcons, our longtime rivals. He was early for his team's practice, skating lazy figure eights on the far side of the rink, movements so fluid it looked like he was born on the ice. I'd seen Jamie around before, of course. Everyone knew who he was. With his confident stride and easy smile, he was the kind of player who commanded attention both on and off the ice. The kind of guy who made scoring goals look effortless, who had a way of making everyone around him feel included in some private joke. I'd never spoken to him, though. What would someone like me even say to someone like him? I was so lost in thought that I didn't notice my skate lace had come undone until I stood up and nearly tripped. Embarrassed, I dropped back onto the bench and leaned down to fix it. My fingers felt clumsy, numb from the cold, and from something else I couldn't quite name. The lace snapped in my hand, and I muttered a curse under my breath. Need some help with that? The voice startled me, and I looked up to find Jamie standing in front of me, his skates at eye level. He'd glided over without making a sound, and now he was looking down at me with an amused expression, his breath forming small clouds in the chilly air. My voice caught in my throat. My lace broke. Jamie nodded thoughtfully, as if I'd presented him with an interesting puzzle rather than a mundane inconvenience. I've got extra laces in my bag. Hang on. Before I could protest, he was skating to the side of the rink where his gear sat. I watched him move, smooth and purposeful, and felt a strange flutter in my chest. He returned with a fresh lace, and to my surprise, dropped to one knee in front of me. Here, let me. His fingers worked quickly, threading the new lace through the eyelets of my skate with practiced ease. I sat frozen, unsure where to look or what to say. The gesture was so unexpected, so intimate in its simplicity, that I couldn't process it. I'm Jamie, by the way, he said without looking up, focusing on his task. Jamie Callahan. I know, I replied, then immediately regretted how that sounded. I mean, everyone knows who you are. You're kind of a big deal around here. He laughed, a warm sound that seemed to cut through the chill of the rink. And you're Alex, right? Number 17 for the Wolves. You've got a wicked backhand shot when you're not overthinking it. The fact that he knew my name, let alone anything about my playing style, left me momentarily speechless. You've watched me play? Jamie finished tying my skate and looked up, still kneeling. His eyes were a striking shade of blue-gray, like the ice just before a storm. I noticed things, he said simply, and for a moment, neither of us moved. He was still holding the end of my lace, and I was still holding my breath. The moment stretched between us, filled with something I couldn't name but could definitely feel, a current of possibility, of connection. Then the doors to the rink banged open as the rest of his team arrived, breaking the spell. Jamie stood up, giving me a smile that felt like it held a secret. See you around, Alex Wright, he said, skating backward with an easy grace. Try not to overthink that backhand. And just like that, he was gone, rejoining his teammates with a series of high fives and shoulder bumps. I sat there for another minute, my newly tied skate feeling strangely significant, before finally making my way to the locker room. Let me explain why this moment mattered so much. In the world of competitive sports, especially in a small town like ours, the rivalry between teams creates these invisible boundaries. You stick with your own, you view the other side as the enemy, and you certainly don't cross those lines to help someone out. Jamie kneeling to fix my skate wasn't just a kind gesture. It was a deliberate crossing of those boundaries, an acknowledgement that saw me as a person first, rival second. The next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about that brief interaction. Every time I laced up my skates, I remembered the focused look on Jamie's face, the casual way he'd mentioned my backhand shot. Had he really been watching me play, or was that just something he said to be nice? And why did I care so much either way? I got my answer the following Tuesday when I arrived at the rink for some extra practice, only to find Jamie already there, alone on the ice. He spotted me immediately and skated over, his face lighting up in a way that made my stomach do a strange flip. "Alex Wright," he said, as if my full name was somehow delightful to pronounce. Perfect timing. I was getting bored of my own company. "What are you doing here?" I asked, trying to sound casual as I stepped onto the ice. "Falcons don't practice on Tuesdays." "Neither do Wolves," he countered with a raised eyebrow. "Yet here you are." I shrugged, adjusting my gloves. "I like the quiet. Gives me space to work on things without everyone watching." Jamie nodded, understanding in his eyes. "The overthinking thing. Among others," I admitted. "Well," he said, skating a small circle around me. "How about we make a deal? You show me that backhand of yours, and I'll show you how I do that spin move that drove your defenseman crazy last season." I should have said no. This was Jamie Callahan, star player for our rivals, offering to essentially trade team secrets. But there was something in his expression, earnest, open, completely lacking in the competitive edge I'd expected, that made me nod instead. "Deal," I said, and just like that, we were skating together, passing the puck back and forth across the empty rink. There's something intimate about sharing ice with just one other person. The sound of blades cutting through the surface, the rhythmic back and forth of the puck, the way you learn to anticipate each other's movements. It creates a conversation without words. Jamie was a better player than me, that was obvious, but he never made me feel less than. Instead, he'd offer small adjustments. "Try shifting your weight here," or "watch how I position my stick." That immediately improved my game. After an hour of drills that somehow felt both challenging and playful, we took a break, sitting side by side on the bench with water bottles in hand. "So why hockey?" Jamie asked, wiping sweat from his forehead. "What got you started?" The question was simple enough, but I found myself giving him the real answer, not the abbreviated version I usually shared. My dad left when I was 11. Mom was working 2 jobs, and I was angry all the time. The school counselor suggested I needed an outlet for all that energy, and there was this community program offering free hockey lessons. I took a drink of water, surprised at my own openness. First time I hit a puck, it was like all that anger had somewhere to go. And when I was on the ice, nobody cared that my dad was gone or that my mom couldn't make it to games. I was just another player. Jamie was quiet for a moment, his eyes thoughtful. "That's why you're so good at the backhand," he finally said. "It's all about channeling force from an unexpected direction." The observation was so insightful, so different from the sympathy or awkwardness that usually followed my story, that I laughed. Never thought of it that way. But yeah, maybe. "What about you?" I asked, genuinely curious. How did Jamie Callahan become the skating prodigy of East Side? He smiled, but there was something wistful in it. "My parents put me in every sport imaginable from the time I could walk. Soccer, baseball, tennis, swimming, you name it, I tried it. They had this idea that one of them would be my ticket to a scholarship." He shrugged. "Hockey was the only one that felt like mine, not theirs. The only one I did because I loved it, not because I was good at it." "But you were good at it," I pointed out. "Yeah. Well, that part came later," he said with a small laugh. "After a lot of early mornings and frozen fingers." We fell into a comfortable silence, and I realized with a start that I was enjoying his company in a way that felt different from hanging out with my teammates or friends. There was an ease between us, a lack of pretense that made me feel like I could be fully myself. "We should do this again," Jamie said as we were packing up our gear. "Same time next week?" I hesitated only briefly before nodding. "Yeah, I'd like that." And so began our Tuesday ritual. For 2 hours each week, the rivalry between Wolves and Falcons ceased to exist. We were just 2 guys who loved the game, sharing the ice and gradually, sharing more of ourselves too. Jamie told me about the pressure he felt to perform, how his parents had invested so much in his potential that he sometimes felt more like a project than a son. I confessed my fear of standing out, how years of trying to be invisible had become a hard habit to break. We talked about music, movies, the classes we were struggling with, and the futures we were uncertain about. These conversations continued off the ice too, through late-night texts and occasional meetups at the 24-hour diner on the edge of town. Each time, I tell myself it was just a friendship, just two guys from rival teams finding common ground. But there was something in the way Jamie looked at me sometimes, something in the way my heart raced when his name appeared on my phone, that suggested it might be more than that. The complication came, as complications often do, when our separate worlds collided. It was bound to happen eventually in a town this size, but I still wasn't prepared for it. Our teams were scheduled to play each other in a crucial game that would determine playoff standings. The rivalry, always intense, had reached a fever pitch. In the locker room before the game, our captain, Mike, was giving his usual pep talk, except this time it felt more personal. "Those East Side pretty boys think they own the ice," he was saying, pacing in front of us. "Especially that Callahan kid, walking around like he's God's gift to hockey. Time to show them what real players look like." The guys were nodding, getting fired up, but I sat there feeling sick to my stomach. This was Jamie they were talking about. Jamie who stayed late to help the rink manager's kid learn to skate. Jamie who knew exactly which songs calmed my nerves before a big test. Jamie whose laugh made everything around him seem brighter. The game itself was brutal from the start. Both teams were playing aggressively, and the refs were letting a lot slide. I kept my head down, trying to focus on the puck and not on Jamie, who was playing with his usual skill but seemed equally reluctant to engage in the rougher aspects of the game. Then, midway through the second period, Mike checked Jamie hard into the boards. It was the kind of hit that towed the line between competitive and dirty, and Jamie went down. The Falcons' bench erupted, and their captain had to be held back by a referee. I stood frozen on the ice, watching as Jamie slowly got to his feet, wincing but waving off his concerned teammates. When play resumed, there was a new edge to the game. Tensions were high, and I could feel the potential for things to get ugly. Then came the moment that changed everything. Jamie and I both went for a loose puck in the corner. We collided, not hard, but enough that we both ended up against the boards, face to face, closer than we'd ever been in public. "You okay?" I asked quietly, aware of the eyes on us, but unable to stop myself from checking. Jamie's expression softened for just a second. "I'm fine. Your captain hits like my grandmother." I couldn't help the small laugh that escaped me, and in that moment of distraction, Jamie stole the puck and was gone, skating down the ice toward our goal. The crowd roared as he scored, putting the Falcons ahead. As we lined up for the face-off, Mike skated by me with a hard look. "What the hell was that, right? Looked like you were having a nice chat with the enemy instead of taking the puck." "I wasn't," I started, but he'd already moved on, leaving me with a sinking feeling that only grew when I caught several of my teammates giving me questioning looks. The Falcons won the game 3-2, with Jamie scoring 2 of their goals. In the locker room afterward, the atmosphere was tense with disappointment and frustration. Mike was particularly vocal. "Some of us seemed more interested in making friends than winning tonight," he said, not looking directly at me, but making his meaning clear. "Remember which jersey you're wearing next time." I changed quickly and left without saying much, a knot of anxiety forming in my chest. Outside the rink, I leaned against the wall, taking deep breaths of the cold night air. I was so lost in thought that I didn't notice Jamie approaching until he spoke. "Rough night?" he asked, his gear bag slung over his shoulder, a small bruise forming where he'd hit the boards. "You could say that," I replied, unable to meet his eyes. "Congratulations on the win." Jamie shifted uncomfortably. "Alex, about what happened on the ice." "My team thinks I let you score," I interrupted, the words coming out harsher than intended. "They think I'm betraying them by being, whatever this is with you." "And what is this?" Jamie asked quietly, stepping closer. "Because I've been trying to figure it out for weeks now, and the only thing I know for sure is that I look forward to Tuesdays more than any other day." His honesty caught me off guard, as it always did. I finally looked at him, really looked at him, standing there in the glow of the parking lot lights, his expression open and vulnerable. And in that moment, all the confusion and denial I'd been wrestling with crystallized into a single, undeniable truth. I had feelings for Jamie Callahan. Feelings that went far beyond friendship or admiration. "I don't know," I said finally, because it was the truth. "I just know that when I'm with you, I feel like myself. Not the version of me that tries to blend in or the version that's afraid to want things. Just me." Jamie's smile was small but genuine. That's a good place to start. But it wasn't that simple, and we both knew it. The rivalry between our teams was real, and it extended beyond the ice. Our friends, our teammates, they wouldn't understand. And then there was the other, more complicated aspect. I had never been with a guy before, had barely even acknowledged that part of myself. The idea was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. I need some time, I told Jamie, to figure things out. He nodded, disappointment visible in his eyes but respect there too. I understand. But Alex. He waited until I looked at him again. Don't overthink it. The weeks that followed were some of the most confusing of my life. I skipped our Tuesday practice, telling myself I needed space to think clearly. Jamie texted a few times, casual messages that left the door open without pushing, but I responded only briefly. On the ice with my team, I pushed myself harder than ever, as if proving my loyalty through sheer effort. But the truth was, I missed him. I missed his laugh, his insights, the way he saw parts of me that no one else bothered to look for. And the more I tried to deny my feelings, the stronger they became. The breaking point came after a particularly grueling practice. Mike had been riding me hard, clearly still harboring suspicions about my friendship with Jamie. As we were leaving, he made a comment, something casual but cutting about Callahan and his type, that made something snap inside me. His type? I repeated, stopping in my tracks. What exactly is that supposed to mean? Mike looked surprised at my reaction. You know what I mean, right? Guys like him who think they're better than everyone else. But I knew that wasn't what he meant, and from the uncomfortable looks exchanged by some of the other guys, they knew it too. In that moment, I realized I was tired of the unspoken rules and expectations, tired of pretending to be less than I was, tired of denying something that made me happy. Jamie Callahan is one of the best people I know, I said, my voice steady despite the pounding of my heart. And yeah, we're friends. More than friends, maybe. I don't know yet. But I do know that I'm done pretending otherwise to make everyone else comfortable. The silence that followed was deafening. Mike stared at me like I'd grown a second head, while reactions from the rest of the team ranged from shock to confusion to, from a few, quiet support. Without waiting for a response, I shouldered my bag and walked out, feeling simultaneously terrified and liberated. Outside, I pulled out my phone and texted Jamie. Can we meet? The usual place. Now if you can. His response came almost immediately. On my way. The diner was nearly empty when I arrived. Just a couple of truckers at the counter and an elderly man reading a newspaper in the corner booth. I slid into our usual spot by the window, ordering 2 coffees out of habit. When Jamie walked in 10 minutes later, the look of concern on his face made my chest tighten. Are you okay? He asked, sliding into the seat across from me. Your text seemed urgent. I pushed his coffee toward him, gathering my courage. I just came out to my team. Sort of. I told them about us. Whatever us is. Jamie's eyes widened. Alex, that's wow. What happened? So I told him everything. Mike's comment, my response, the shocked silence that followed. As I spoke, Jamie reached across the table and took my hand, his thumb tracing small circles on my skin. I'm proud of you, he said when I finished. That took incredible courage. I don't feel very courageous, I admitted. I feel like I just blew up my life without a plan. Jamie squeezed my hand. The best things in life rarely follow a plan. Trust me, I know. He paused, his expression growing more serious. But Alex, I need to know what this means for us. Because these past few weeks without you have been pretty miserable, and I don't want to get my hopes up if you're still figuring things out. The vulnerability in his voice gave me the final push I needed. I'm still figuring a lot of things out, I said honestly. But one thing I'm sure about is you. I want to see where this goes, Jamie. I want to stop overthinking and just feel. The smile that spread across his face was like sunshine breaking through clouds. I can work with that, he said, and the relief and joy in his voice made everything else, the team drama, the uncertainty, the fear, seem manageable. We stayed in that diner until closing, talking about what this new reality might look like. It wouldn't be easy. There would be teammates who wouldn't understand, friends who might distance themselves, challenges we couldn't yet foresee. But sitting across from Jamie, watching the animated way he talked about the future, I felt a certainty I'd never experienced before. This was right. We were right. The true test came the following weekend at a local tournament. Both our teams were competing, and it would be the first time we'd be seen together publicly since my impromptu coming out. Jamie had been supportive but cautious, letting me set the pace for how open we wanted to be. We arrived separately, But as I was lacing up my skates in the preparation area, I felt a presence beside me. Looking up, I found Jamie there, a nervous smile on his face. "Your laces are uneven," he said, nodding toward my skates. "Want some help?" It was such a perfect callback to our first real interaction that I couldn't help but laugh. "Are you offering to tie my skates again, Callahan?" "I'm offering whatever you need, right?" he replied, his voice light, but his eyes serious. In response, I shifted over on the bench, making room for him. Without hesitation, Jamie knelt down and began adjusting my laces, his fingers deft and familiar. I was acutely aware of the curious glances from players of both teams, the whispered comments, but in that moment, all I could focus on was Jamie looking up at me, his hands still holding my laces, his eyes holding mine. "Ready to show them what we've got?" he asked quietly. I nodded, feeling a surge of something that felt a lot like happiness. More than ready. As we stood up together, I made a decision. Reaching out, I took Jamie's hand in mine. A small gesture, but an unmistakable one. The murmurs around us increased, but Jamie's smile was worth any discomfort. "For the record," he said as we walked toward the rink, hands still linked, "I've been wanting to do this since the day I tied your skate the first time." "Why didn't you?" I asked, genuinely curious. Jamie shrugged, a playful light in his eyes. "Some things are worth waiting for." And as we stepped onto the ice together, facing whatever came next as a united front rather than rivals, I knew he was right. Some things, the best things, are absolutely worth the wait, worth the risk, worth the journey of discovery. Jamie had seen something in me that day at the rink, something worth kneeling for, something worth holding on to. And I, finally, had found the courage to see it too. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be games where we'd play against each other, moments of tension with teammates, challenges to navigate. But standing there on the ice, with Jamie's hand in mine and the future stretching out before us like a fresh sheet of untouched snow, I felt ready for all of it. Ready to stop watching from the sidelines of my own life. Ready to stop overthinking and start living. Ready to see where this unexpected connection might lead. Because sometimes the most beautiful moments come when we least expect them. Like when someone kneels to tie your skate and ends up holding so much more than just your laces. Total _char_count, 18,684.